Windows Server 2008 is one of Microsoft Windows Server line of operating systems. Released to manufacturing on February 4, 2008, and officially released on February 27, 2008, it is the successor to Windows Server 2003, released nearly 5 years earlier. A second release, named Windows Server 2008-02, was released to manufacturing on July 22, 2009. History. Originally known as Windows Server codename Longhorn, Microsoft Chairman Bill Gates announced its official title during his keynote address at WinHEC May 16, 2007. Tower 1 was released on July 27, 2005, Tower 2 was announced and released on May 23, 2006 at WinHEC 2006 and Tower 3 was released publicly on April 25, 2007. Release candidate Tier 0 was released to the general public on September 24, 2007 and release candidate Tier 1 was released to the general public on December 5, 2007. Windows Server 2008 was released to manufacturing on February 4, 2008 and officially launched on February 27, 2008. Features. Windows Server 2008 is built from the same codebase as Windows Vista. Therefore, it shares much of the same architecture and functionality. Since the codebase is common, it automatically comes with most of the technical, security, management and administrative features new to Windows Vista such as the rewritten networking stack. Improved image-based installation, deployment and recovery. Improved diagnostics, monitoring, event logging and reporting tools. New security features such as BitLocker and ASLR. Improved Windows Firewall with secure default configuration. NET Framework 3.0 technologies, specifically Windows Communication Foundation, Microsoft Message Queuing and Windows Workflow Foundation. And the core kernel, memory and file system improvements. Processors and memory devices are modeled as plug-and-play devices, to allow hot plugging of these devices. This allows the system resources to be partitioned dynamically using dynamic hardware partitioning. Each partition has its own memory, processor and I/O host bridge devices independent of other partitions. Server Core. Windows Server 2008 includes a variation of installation called Server Core. Server Core is a significantly scaled-back installation where no Windows Explorer shell is installed. All configuration and maintenance is done entirely through command line interface windows, or by connecting to the machine remotely using Microsoft Management Console. However, Notepad and some control panel applets, such as regional settings, are available. Server Core does not include the .NET Framework, Internet Explorer, Windows PowerShell or many other features not related to core server features. A server core machine can be configured for several basic roles: domain controller, Active Directory domain services, ADLDS, DNS server, DHCP server, file server, print server, Windows Media Server, IIS-7 web server and Hyper-V virtual server. Server core can also be used to create a cluster with high availability using failover clustering or network load balancing. Andrew Mason, a program manager on the Windows Server team, noted that a primary motivation for producing a server core variant of Windows Server 2008 was to reduce the attack surface of the operating system, and that about 70% of the security vulnerabilities in Microsoft Windows from the prior 5 years would not have affected server core. Active Directory roles. Active Directory roles are expanded with identity, certificate, and rights management services. Active Directory, until Windows Server 2003, allowed network administrators to centrally manage connected computers, to set policies for groups of users, and to centrally deploy new applications to multiple computers. This role of Active Directory is being renamed as Active Directory Domain Services. A number of other additional services are being introduced, including Active Directory Federation Services, Active Directory Lightweight Directory Services, Active Directory Certificate Services, and Active Directory Rights Management Services. Identity and certificate services allow administrators to manage user accounts and the digital certificates that allow them to access certain services and systems. Federation management services enable enterprises to share credentials with trusted partners and customers, allowing a consultant to use his company username and password to log in on a client's network. Identity integration feature pack is included as Active Directory meta-directory services. Each of these services represents a server role. Failover clustering. Windows Server 2008 offers high availability to services and applications through failover clustering. Most server features and roles can be kept running with little to no downtime. In Windows Server 2008 and Windows Server 2008-02, the way clusters are qualified changed significantly with the introduction of the Cluster Validation Wizard. The Cluster Validation Wizard is a feature that is integrated into failover clustering in Windows Server 2008 and Windows Server 2008-02. With the Cluster Validation Wizard, an administrator can run a set of focused tests on a collection of servers that are intended to use as nodes in a cluster. This cluster validation process tests the underlying hardware and software directly, and individually, to obtain an accurate assessment of how well failover clustering can be supported on a given configuration. Note: this feature is only available in Enterprise and Data Center editions of Windows Server. Self-healing Ntfs. In Windows versions prior to Windows Vista, if the operating system detected corruption in the file system of an Ntfs volume, it marked the volume dirty. To correct errors on the volume, it had to be taken offline. With self-healing Ntfs, an Ntfs worker thread is spawned in the background which performs a localized fix-up of damaged data structures, with only the corrupted files folders remaining unavailable without locking out the entire volume and needing the server to be taken down. The operating system now features SMART detection techniques to help determine when a hard disk may fail. Hyper-V. Hyper-V is hypervisor-based virtualization software, forming a core part of Microsoft's virtualization strategy. It virtualizes servers on an operating system's kernel layer. It can be thought of as partitioning a single physical server into multiple small computational partitions. Hyper-V includes the ability to act as a Xen virtualization hypervisor host, allowing Xen-enabled guest operating systems to run virtualized. A beta version of Hyper-V shipped with certain x86-64 editions of Windows Server 2008, prior to Microsoft's release of the final version of Hyper-V on June 26, 2008 as a free download. Also, a standalone version of Hyper-V exists. This version supports only x86-64 architecture. While the IA32 editions of Windows Server 2008 cannot run or install Hyper-V, they can run the MMC snap-in for managing Hyper-V. Windows System Resource Manager. Windows System Resource Manager is integrated into Windows Server 2008. It provides resource management and can be used to control the amount of resources a process or a user can use based on business priorities. Process matching criteria, which is defined by the name, type or owner of the process, enforces restrictions on the resource usage by a process that matches the criteria. CPU time, bandwidth that it can use, number of processes it can be run on, and allocated to a process can be restricted. Restrictions can be set to be imposed only on certain dates as well. Server Manager. Server Manager is a new roles-based management tool for Windows Server 2008. It is a combination of Manage Your Server and Security Configuration Wizard SCW from Windows Server 2003. Server Manager is an improvement of the Configure My Server dialog that launches by default on Windows Server 2003 machines. However, rather than serve only as a starting point to configuring new roles, Server Manager gathers together all of the operations users would want to conduct on the server, such as getting a remote deployment method set up, adding more server roles, etc., and provides a consolidated, portal-like view about the status of each role. Other features. Other new or enhanced features include Core OS improvements, fully multi-componentized operating system. Improved hot patching, a feature that allows non-kernel patches to occur without the need for a reboot. Support for being booted from extensible firmware interface compliant firmware on x86-64 systems. Dynamic hardware partitioning, support for the hot addition or replacement of processors and memory, on capable hardware. Active Directory improvements, read-only domain controllers and Active Directory, intended for use in branch office or other scenarios where a domain controller may reside in a low physical security environment. The RODC holds a non-writable copy of Active Directory, and redirects all write attempts to a full domain controller. It replicates all accounts except sensitive ones. In RODC mode, credentials are not cached by default. Moreover, only the replication partner of the RODC needs to run Windows Server 2008. Also, local administrators can log onto the machine to perform maintenance tasks without requiring administrative rights on the domain. Restartable Active Directory allows ADDS to be stopped and restarted from the management console or the command line without rebooting the domain controller. This reduces downtime for offline operations and reduces overall DC servicing requirements with Server Core. ADDS is implemented as a domain controller service in Windows Server 2008. Policy-related improvements, all of the group policy improvements from Windows Vista are included. Group Policy Management Console is built in. The group policy objects are indexed for search and can be commented on. Policy-based networking with network access protection, improved branch management and enhanced end-user collaboration. Policies can be created to ensure greater quality of service for certain applications or services that require prioritization of network bandwidth between client and server. Granular password settings within a single domain, ability to implement different password policies for administrative accounts on a group and user basis, instead of a single set of password settings to the whole domain. Disk management and file storage improvements, the ability to resize hard disk partitions without stopping the server, even the system partition. This applies only to simple and span volumes, not to striped volumes. Shadow copy-based block-level backup which supports optical media, network shares and Windows recovery environment. Dfs Enhancements, Sizable on DFSR, read-only folder replication member. There is also support for domain-based DFS namespaces that exceed the previous size recommendation of 5,000 folders with targets in a namespace. Several improvements to failover clustering. Internet Storage Naming Server enables central registration, deregistration and queries for ISC hard drives. Protocol and cryptography improvements, support for 128 and 256-bit AES encryption for the Kerberos authentication protocol. New cryptography API which supports elliptic curve cryptography and improved certificate management. Secure Socket Tunneling Protocol, a new Microsoft proprietary VPN protocol. AuthIP, a Microsoft proprietary extension of the IKE cryptographic protocol used in IPsec VPN networks. Server Message Block 2.0 protocol and the new TCP/IP stack provides a number of communication enhancements, including greater performance when connecting to file shares over high-latency links and better security through the use of mutual authentication and message signing. Miscellaneous improvements, Windows deployment services replacing automated deployment services and remote installation services. Windows deployment services support an enhanced multicast feature when deploying operating system images. Internet Information Service 7, increased security, robocopy deployment, improved diagnostic tools, delegated administration. Windows Internal Database, a variant of SQL Server Express 2005, which serves as a common storage backend for several other components such as Windows System Resource Manager, Windows SharePoint Services and Windows Server Update Services. It is not intended to be used by third-party applications. An optional desktop experience component provides the same Windows Aero user interface as Windows Vista, both for local users, as well as remote users connecting through Remote Desktop. Removed features. The Open Shortest Path First Routing Protocol component in Routing and Remote Access Service was removed. Services for Macintosh, which provided file and print sharing via the now deprecated Apple Talk protocol, has been removed. Services for Macintosh were removed in Windows XP from client operating systems but were available in Windows Server 2003. Backup is replaced by Windows Server Backup, and no longer supports backing up to tape drives. As a result of Backup removal, Exchange Server 2007 does not have volume snapshot backup functionality. However, Exchange Server 2007 SP2 adds back an Exchange Backup plugin for Windows Server Backup which restores partial functionality. Windows Small Business Server and Windows Essential Business Server both include this Exchange Backup component. The POP3 service has been removed from Internet Information Services 7.0. The SMTP service is not available as a server role in IIS 7.0, it is a server feature managed through IIS 6.0. NNTP is no longer part of Internet Information Services 7.0. Editions. Most editions of Windows Server 2008 are available in x86-64 and IA32 versions. Windows Server 2008 for Itanium-based systems supports IA64 processors. Microsoft has optimized the IA64 version for high workload scenarios like database servers and line-of-business applications. As such, it is not optimized for use as a file server or media server. Microsoft has announced that Windows Server 2008 is the last 32-bit Windows Server operating system. Windows Server 2008 is available in the editions listed below, similar to Windows Server 2003. Windows Server 2008 Standard, Windows Server 2008 Enterprise, Windows Server 2008 Data Center, Windows HPC Server 2008, Windows Web Server 2008, Windows Storage Server 2008, Windows Small Business Server 2008 for small businesses, Windows Essential Business Server 2008 for medium-sized businesses, Windows Server 2008 for Itanium-based systems, Windows Server 2008 Foundation OEM only. Server Core is available in the Web, Standard, Enterprise and Data Center editions. It is not available in the Itanium edition. Server Core is simply an alternate installation option supported by some of the editions, and not a separate edition by itself. Each architecture has a separate installation DVD. The 32-bit version of Windows Server 2008 Standard Edition is available to verified students for free through Microsoft's Dream Spark program. Service Packs. Microsoft occasionally releases service packs for its Windows operating systems to fix bugs and also add new features. Service Pack 2, because Windows Server 2008 is based on the Windows NT 6.0 Service Pack 1 kernel, the RTM release is considered to be Service Pack 1. Accordingly, the first service pack is called Service Pack 2. Announced on October 24, 2008. This service pack contains the same changes and improvements as the Windows Vista Service Pack 2, as well as the final release of Hyper-V 1.0, and an approximate 10% reduction in power usage. The first SP2 beta build was sent out in October 2008, a public beta arrived in December 2008, and an RCS Grow build was given to testers in January 2009. Windows Vista and Windows Server 2008 share a single service pack binary, reflecting the fact that their code bases were joined with a release of Server 2008. On May 26, 2009, Service Pack 2 was ready for release. It is now available in Windows Update. Windows Server 2008 2. A second release, Windows Server 2008 2, was released on October 22, 2009. Retail availability began September 14, 2009. Windows Server 2008 2 reached the RTM milestone on July 22, 2009. Like Windows 7, it is built on Windows NT 6.1. New features include new virtualization features, new Active Directory features, IIS 7.5, and support for 256 logical processors. Support for 32-bit only processors has been removed. On July 22, 2009, Microsoft officially announced that they had released both Windows Server 2008 2 and Windows 7 to manufacturing. Windows Server 2008-02 was generally available for download from MSDN and TechNet on August 19 and for retail purchase from October 22, 2009. System requirements for Windows Server 2008 are as follows. Scalability: Windows Server 2008 supports the following maximum hardware specifications. See also, Microsoft servers, list of Microsoft code names, notes. References. Further reading. External links, Windows Server Performance Team blog.